the Trexo is, we've actually, that's okay. We've essentially built robotic legs, and they attach to the upper frame of a Riften Dynamic Pacer gait trainer. It does specifically have to be that Riften Dynamic Pacer. It can't work with any other type of gait trainer or a regular pacer in general. There's the battery box that's attached to the front, and everything is controlled with a tablet that acts as the remote control. So you guys can see here, we have the customized support accessories. You can adjust the weight bearing levels, lots of different features on the Trexo. I'm not going to dive into it too much because I think Mark may talk a little bit about it further into the presentation. But essentially, a child is able to use the Trexo even if they don't initiate steps, if they can't roll over, they can't sit, they can't stand, they can't hold up their head. These are all things that don't disqualify a child from using the Trexo. There's different supports and features built in to support the kiddo and meet them basically where they're at, so they can essentially start walking, whether it be overground walking or even air walking. There's many different features, again, to meet the child where they're at.
Great, thanks. And I'm just going to jump in for a second and say, we do have a resource sheet that we will be giving you after, we'll send it out tomorrow when we send out the replay. And so you'll be able to look in more detail at some of this stuff. And we also have some other information that'll be included. So for anybody who's worried about taking notes, don't worry about it. You'll get a resource sheet and you'll get the video replay. Forgot to mention that.
So pricing tends to be the hot topic on everybody's mind, is what does the Trexo cost? So let me just start off by saying that the Trexo is not covered by insurance. While that is our goal, the Trexo is the first device of its kind. So we have studies in progress and things going on that we hope when they wrap up, we'll take this data to insurance to fight for pre-approvals. But in the meantime, everything is out of pocket. You're always welcome to try. We've had a handful of approvals, but that is with families doing the legwork themselves. So what the pricing looks like, you have 4 sizes of Trexo: small, medium, large, and extra large. The small and medium, its outright purchase is $34,900. You can also do the rent to own for that small and medium, and it's basically $9.99 a month, and that's over 36 months you would own it. And for the large and extra large Trexo, you can purchase it in full at $39,900, or you can do the rent to own at $10.99 a month over 36 months, and you would own it. However, you are committing to 12 months at a time. So when we say 1 year there, that's what that is referencing. So when you reserve your device, it's $4.99 to get on our wait list. That starts our process, but sorry about that. Basically, you're committing to the 12 months. At the end of 12 months, you guys would decide, are you going to keep or return it? And if you decided to return it, there's no cancellation fee. If you kept it, you could purchase it at that point minus what you paid, or you can continue with another 12-month agreement. Same thing at month 24, reevaluate, are you keeping or returning it? And if you continue with that rental, you would own it at the end of 36 months. What I tend to appreciate the most, being a parent with a kiddo who uses a Trexo, we go through a lot of equipment. So I really appreciate the fact that there's checkpoints at 12 months and 24 months, just to make sure you are using it, you're happy with it, your kiddo likes it, and it's not just stuck sitting in the corner collecting dust. So that's one of the things that drew me to that rent to own option the most. As you can see here, this bullet says the deposit becomes the down payment. That $499 deposit does become part of the down payment. The down payment is $1,000, so we would just deduct that $499 from that $1,000. Both options, the rent to own and the outright purchase, come with an in-home 2-week trial. So while it does require you to put down a little bit of money on that first invoice for the Trexo to ship out, when you get the Trexo, we'll take you through training. When you complete the training, that starts your 2-week trial. And if in that 2-week window you decided you weren't happy with it, it wasn't a good fit, whatever the reason may be, you let us know, we'll schedule a pickup. And when we get it back, we would refund everything you've paid up until that point, just minus the shipping cost.
Great, thank you. And did you talk about the Riften, Ali, or do you want to mention that real quick?
Yeah, thank you for the reminder. As mentioned, it's the Riften dynamic pacer that is required. That Riften is separate. A lot of families, you can get it from insurance, but a lot get it from us as well. We do get a discounted rate from Riften that we pass on to families. One of the things I do like to point out, though, around that Riften is, I think initially as parents, our thought is, let's just go through insurance. It's probably going to be easier than paying out of pocket. And when I say easier, I use that term very loosely. But if your kid has a walker or has received a walker in the last 5 years, typically your insurance isn't going to cover another one unless they outgrew it. So one thing to consider when looking at getting the Riften from insurance, one, are they going to cover it because maybe you had one? But two, are they going to need another walker in the future within the next 5 years? Because if that's the case, it's typically cheaper for you to get the Riften from us because we have that discounted rate. And then if you need your child to get another walker, like the kid walk or the Grillo, for example, because they're using that in conjunction with a Trexo, like outside of their Trexo, then get that from insurance and get the Riften from us. Because if you're paying for one out of pocket, at least we have the discount to offer. So it ends up being cheaper for you to buy it from us and then use that other benefit through insurance.
Great, thank you. So I mentioned at the beginning of the call that we had the Truxo team here. So Rachel is new on the team. So I'm just going to have her introduce herself and tell herself a little bit about you. Oh my God, I'm going to stop speaking. This is why I'm not speaking on the webinar.
We understood. So hi, everybody. I am Rachel and I am new on the team. I'm super excited to be here. I actually applied to the job strictly because of my belief in the product. And I left a teaching career that I was very passionate about, but I did that because I am such a believer in this product because of what the product has done for my son, Bo here, what it's done firsthand. I've seen my child change completely, which has been super beautiful to see because if you have a child with a diagnosis, I think the biggest thing for me personally after receiving my son's diagnosis was a lot of hope was taken. A lot of your son will never do this will never happen. And you can fall into a really negative headspace. And it wasn't until after my son started using the Trexo that hope that I never thought was going to come back started trickling in again. And just seeing my son, you can see him, you can see how much he lights up in this device. And when he's standing eye level with his brother and just playing with his friends. And when he's out on the street, he feels like a celebrity in his Trexo because of all the other kids coming up to him. And that's just his like social and emotional well-being. But this device has changed so much for us. At every single appointment, our team is always just blown away with the changes that he has had. He's had so many incredible changes. Not on clinical trial. I'm going to note that this is not in the trial data, but my son's scoliosis has improved. His hips have improved as well. He's getting stronger every day. Like this past weekend, he started standing, which at almost 4 years old, we've never seen that happen before. So the device does not promise to make those things happen, but for us, it's just been like watching magic as we do see it happen. So yeah, that's just a little bit about our story. And I wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about fundraising because as Allison mentioned, there are a few insurance approvals, but there are a lot of families that fundraise for the device. So my family was one of those families. And if you have fundraised in the past, you know that it's not an easy task. So I think the hardest part when we are fundraising is, for me personally, when my son was diagnosed, I think the biggest emotion that came over me was shame. And then when we wanted to get my son the Trexo, that shame almost came back in because I was like, I can't afford this device, but I see the incredible things that it's doing for my son. So how can I gain access to this? And there was a point where I just crumbled and was like, this isn't fair. It's not fair. I can't get it. But then I had a shift. I started to learn about mindful self-compassion. And through mindful self-compassion, I was able to stop every day in the moment and kind of check in with myself and to see how I was feeling. And when I wasn't fundraising or I wasn't receiving no's, I was okay. I was feeling okay and things were good. And it was in those moments where I wanted things like the Trexo that shame came back in and almost felt debilitating. So it's very important to know in fundraising to take care of yourself first and show yourself compassion for what you've been through. And if those emotions come back in, try to use all of the no's and the negativity and your son or your child will never do this to fuel you, to be like, my child absolutely will do X, Y, and Z, and I'll find a way to get there. So all of the no's and the nevers just started to fuel my fire. And I was like, I'm going to find a way, because I started to see that hope coming back in when my son was using the device. So currently right now, the Trexo has a wait list. So because of this wait list, devices will be sent out at around the end of summer. So it's actually a perfect time right now to put a deposit down, because from right now until the summer, that is a long time to get some fundraising in and to get the device. You'd be really surprised to see who is willing to help you when you ask for help. And I think asking for help is the hardest thing, because that shame comes back in that I mentioned. So if you're able to stop and recognize that you are deserving of these things and you are deserving of help, that is a huge shift, because every caregiver I've ever met is an absolute warrior, and going through so much more so than anybody can ever recognize. So I think it's so important to recognize that, yes, your child is going through a lot, but so are you. And you deserve this too. You deserve the break, and you deserve the community, and you deserve the help. And I think once you start just asking for that help and seeing how people show up for you, it's very interesting. As well as when you are fundraising, try to make your fundraising event that you are doing close to your heart and something that fills you up. It's a chance for you to kind of have a little bit of purpose and show your creativity. So for my family, what we did is we actually had a wait list. When we put our deposit down 2 years ago is when we started using it. When we put our deposit down, we had a couple of months to fundraise, and we were doing the leasing option. So by the time we actually received our device, we had fundraised enough to last the year. So rather than looking at the 35,000 that we needed to fundraise, we made small goals. So we were like, we want to fundraise $1,000 at a time, because that will cover our month to month. So rather than looking at the big number and being incredibly overwhelmed with that number, because the more things we have on our plate, the harder things feel. But if you get that number and you break it down into smaller pieces, it seems and feels a lot more attainable. So my son has spinal muscle atrophy, and I see families, and my family alone, we had to fundraise for treatment, and this is millions of dollars. So it is incredibly doable, but as a parent, you need to ensure that you take care of yourself so you can manage the bandwidth that all of this encompasses. But once you fill yourself up and you're able to give yourself that energy, it's absolutely doable. And that comes from showing yourself that kindness, and then reaching out for help and seeing and creating that community that can be there for you. And you'd be incredibly surprised to see who shows up for you and what you can attain just by asking for help, because we all deserve that help. So for the funding options, you can do fundraising. Like I just mentioned, there's a lot that goes in with the fundraising, but there's so much you can do nowadays with fundraising. And Trexo has a list of resources that we send out, and we're constantly building this list of resources to send out. That was the biggest thing for our family when we were doing the fundraising, was Truxo was continuously supporting me and connecting and was cheering me on as I went. So it felt awesome to not feel alone through all of it. There's also a ton of grants, state or local programs, as well as insurance. So the big difference we have found with the insurance approvals is the families who are willing to not give up. So it's totally up to you and what you're willing to do and fight. As we all know, there's no free handouts on this journey. I feel like when our child gets a diagnosis, it is there to show us our own strength and what we're willing to do. And I'm not the kind of person that likes to sit in woe is me kind of mindset. So I want to do something about it. And so when I felt down that things weren't going my way, I feel those feelings and then I create a plan. And Trexo has already done a lot of the legwork to help with that support, but it's up to us to take care of ourselves so we have the bandwidth to make that work. So for the families that have had insurance approvals, they were just not willing to take no as an answer. So if you go in with that mindset, you can. If we get creative with some of the data that does exist, it is very possible. And there are incredible organizations like Make-A-Wish and many others that once you're ready to get your device and go that route, Truxo has a list of resources as well as the ability to connect with other families as well, so you can get that help.
Great, thank you. Mark, do you want to take this?
Sure. When you guys are considering getting a Trexo for your kiddo, and you've kind of pulled the trigger and you've decided that this is something that you want to do, we ask you that you put in an assessment. And basically what that is, if you go on the Trexo website, there's an assessment form that we ask you to fill out that asks you a bunch of information about your kiddo's medical history, as well as we ask you for some videos and for some pictures. So we really get a full view of everything about your kiddo. We want to make sure that that it's going to be suited appropriately for your child. And there's lots of sizing aspects that we need to take into consideration so we know that we're getting the right size device for your child. Typically, what I'm trying to do is to put your kiddo into the biggest size device that we can. As you guys are aware, there's multiple sizes of Trexos, and when kiddos grow from one size to the next size, there has to be a size growth in the device as well. And what I'm typically trying to do is to get your kiddo to fit into the biggest size possible so that they have the largest size of room to be able to grow into the device. Depending on your child's size, you'll fall into one of 4 or 5 categories, but that's kind of how that plays out. But basically with the assessment, it can be kind of complicated because we're asking you to get some videos and to get some photos. So getting 2 people together to fill out the assessment is usually the best bet. It's probably going to take about an hour because there's lots of information that we're asking for you to fill out because we want to be as thorough as possible because we want to take everything into consideration. And once we obtain the assessment from you, we get together as a team. Myself and a few other the customer success managers get together and we review all the children and have a meeting where we decide if there's anything in specific that we need to know from the family or if everything that we require is in the assessment. And then we get back and let you know whether approval has happened or if there's any other information that we need and kind of start the open dialogue with the families that is going to continue through training and all the rest of it, because the customer success managers such as myself are the ones that are going to end up doing the trainings with you and then be your points of contact going forward if you ever have any questions.
Great, thanks. Mark, I just want to pause for 1 second and ask you to address a question that I hear a lot. There are 2 big questions. We've covered the first one, which is the finances, but the second is, will it work for my kiddo? And so we always mention the assessment. And so people really wonder, is their kiddo going to be approved? So can you talk a little bit about like how common it is to get approvals and what are some things that would cause them to not be approved?
For sure. So we try our best to approve everybody because we want these kiddos to be able to use these devices, but there are some conditions that we obviously have to consider twice or 3 times about because they won't work with the Trexo. So one of those would be kiddos with low bone density that have proclivity to fractures. They have high chance of breaking their bones. We really want to be careful with these kids. Again, this is stuff that we ask in the assessment. That would be if your child has had multiple previous fractures. We would definitely take a second look at that, and we would probably have a conversation with your home physician to see what the best plan of attack would be. Kiddos that have hip or knee contractures greater than 15 degrees, it makes it difficult to use the device for ground walking, but we can kind of tailor things more so for the child to gain a little bit of range of motion and change the goal from being ground walking to air walking with the hopes of ground walking in the future. So we can kind of set things up for kids even if they're physically not able to ground walk at the time. There's other issues such as what's it called, osteogenesis imperfecta, which is a low bone density and again a high tendency for fracture that unfortunately we're not able to accommodate. But we try and collect as much information as we can about your child in that assessment so that we can make a really good determination of whether this is going to work well for your child or not. Typically, there's a lot of ways that we can adjust and kind of tweak the device in different ways to set it up specifically for your child. And there are a few cases that are too much for us to deal with, in which case we would have to negate your assessment, but it's very rare.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention one thing too regarding the assessment. Mark mentioned we'll send you the assessment, but you'll get the assessment once you do the deposit. So when you place that $4.99 reservation, you'll get an email confirming that we got the reservation, but also in that email includes the link for that online assessment form that Mark was referencing.
Great, thank you. And Mark, do you want to talk about this? I think you touched on a little bit of it, but just kind of talk through.
Actually, I was just about to jump in. That's perfect. So when you do your assessment, basically what I'm asking for is for a bunch of videos, well, not just to mention the data and the information about your child's previous medical history so we can make that determination, but I'm looking for videos of your child in a standing position so I can see their physical ability level and their strength level coming in, as well as the range of motion available on their legs and the leg lengths, so I know what size of Trexo that you guys are going to need. Because once you send all that information to me, I will go ahead and pick all the different pieces that I think would be best suited for your child, Riften sizing as well as Trexo sizing, and then send you an email that tells you all the little bits and pieces that I think would be the most successful way to go. And then you can take that list and either bring it to your insurance company or what have you, but it'll be the items from Riften that I think you should probably go with. And then as far as the shoes are concerned, because that can always be kind of the most determining factor here with whether or not we can really make the thing work on game day, is having proper footwear and ideally AFOs or something that's going to help our children get the heel strike that we need to work with the Trexo. So a lot of our kids, and I'm sure you guys are aware, they when they're walking, they have a tendency to plant their toes first and reluctance to get their heels down to the ground. So we rely on usually AFOs or Mimo shoes to help get that heel strike. But if the child's got AFOs, I would really recommend getting a pair of Billy shoes. One, because they go on really easily and they zip on, but two, because we designed all of our Trexo shoes to match the Billy high tops. So it really happens to work quite well if you happen to go that route. And just so you know, we get a 10% discount on Billy shoes.
Yeah, so we will include the link so that you guys, if you want to purchase shoes and get the discount, that will be in the resource sheet.
I actually wanted to add one thing. Mark, so just if you can clarify, are like Billy shoes and Mimo shoes mandatory or any other shoes can also be used?
So effectively, it all depends on the child's ability to get heel strike, because the Trexo really requires heel strike when walking. We've had some kids who don't have the tendency to push down in plantar flexion and put their toes down or the balls of their foot down first, and we can just get away with kind of any type of shoe. But typically what I end up seeing a lot of the time is the other If the child has AFOs, I'm always going to go ask you to wear the AFOs with a pair of Billy shoes first, because that's the easiest route. Just obtaining AFOs can be difficult if you don't already have them. And instead of waiting for appointments with the AFOs and the expense that's involved and all the rest of it, I recommend kind of looking at a pair of Mimo shoes, because you can get a lot of the similar heel strike action that I'm trying to get out of the AFOs with the Mimo shoes as a backup plan if required. But technically, it all kind of depends on how your child walks and stands. And when you're having your child stand, if they have a tendency to come up on their toes, we have to add Mimo shoes or sorry, Billy shoes or Mimo boots to kind of help with that heel strike.
Great, thank you. So we've talked about the Trexo and the pricing if you place your reservation and go through the assessment process. So after your kiddo is approved, we just wanted to give an overview of what you can expect next. JDev, did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So when your child is approved and Mark determines, yes, they can use the Trexo. So what we do next is we have a call with the family, with the parents, and we determine the next steps. So I'm one of the account coordinators at Trexo. So I would walk you through the whole journey, tell you about the delivery timelines. Right now, our delivery timelines are 12 to 16 weeks. So if you get in your reservation today, you'll be on the wait list and get the Trexo in the next 12 to 16 weeks. I'll also discuss leasing options, purchase options with you, and walk you through the whole process if you have any concerns. And also I want to also check with you if you're ordering the Riften through us or if you're getting the Riften through insurance. So these are some of the things that I will touch base with you on once the assessment is approved. And we'll be doing so it's a super easy process. It's essentially like signing the agreement for the Trexo home device. It's an online agreement that we sign with the families, and there's also an invoice that you can pay online using the credit card. And if you're going with the leasing option, you just pay the first month and the last month plus the down payment on the first invoice. And then once you get the Trexo delivered and the Riften delivered, then I'll set up a 3-hour training with our customer success team. And then Mark or one of our customer success managers will do the training. And it's a virtual training done over Zoom. So they'll go over the safety instructions. They'll also get your kiddo to fit the device and answer any questions that you might have. And then after that, your 2-week, once the training is complete, is actually the day when your 2-week trial period starts. So you have 2 weeks from them to see if Trexo is a good fit for your child. If not, you can return the device and we'll refund everything that you've paid for, minus the shipping of the device back. And if it's a good fit and you feel you want to continue, then we would just set up your monthly payments for lease, and then you can move forward as usual. And as in when we go through the process, one thing I just tell families is our team is super supportive. And our one thing that I want to mention is as long as you're leasing the device or if you own the device, it comes with a very super comprehensive warranty. So you probably you don't expect even to pay a single dollar on top to maintain the device. Everything is covered and we take care of everything in case anything goes wrong, which does not happen as much since our current device is very sturdy. And yeah, we will have check-ins with our customer success managers as and when along the journey every 3 months. And yeah, our team will definitely be in touch and answer any questions at any point.
Can I jump in quickly?
Sure.
On what JDev was just saying, JDev and I actually were talking about it this week because JDev and Mark were both on my account with my son. And the biggest thing for me working with Trexo, as a Trexo user, was the compassion from the company and the fact that I felt like my hand was being held the whole time. Whereas on this journey, I felt like I've had to fight alone and do everything alone. And I just remember I had a call, my Bo was in the hospital and I was freaking out. And JDev called me, and I even said to him, like, this is like the most compassionate call I've ever had since my son has been diagnosed. And for me, that was the biggest shift I had, where I was like, oh my goodness, there are devices like this that exist to help us, but they actually are going to support me through the whole way. Like, they don't want that, nobody's trying to take advantage here. And same with Mark. Like, anytime I'd be on a call with Mark, I'd be super stressed, but at the end I'd feel so much lighter, because a lot of the issues I was having were super easy for it to fix, but I had made it in my mind, because you're just stressed with every day. So the fact that, you know, Mark and Allison were caregivers themselves, I felt like it wasn't me versus them, and it was an us, and I had a team of people there supporting me. So I feel like that was really big. And so I just, yeah, as a Trexo user, I really appreciate the support given throughout the entire process. So thanks, guys.
Thanks for sharing that. Mark, you want to talk about the treadmill?
Yeah, sure. So as you can see in these photos here, we also have a treadmill that the device can fit on for inclement weather, to be perfectly honest with you, or if you happen to live in a flat in London, England, and don't have a lot of space. Effectively, what this thing does is allows you to use your Trexo inside in a stationary location. For the people in Florida, when it's crazy hot in the middle of the summer, you're able to use it inside in the air conditioning. For myself, in the winter, when there's snow on the ground, we can still use it in the family room. But basically, the treadmill itself has no motor in it, because the Trexo has all the motors that we need. And you roll the whole device up and on top, and it locks into place in the wheel locks on the front of the treadmill, and we can have the device just kind of working on this treadmill. And again, the Trexo itself will push the belt back, so the child can get the ground walking experience without having to move.
Great, thank you.
Just wanted to add quick information on the treadmill. So it's something that you can get even after getting your Trexo device. It's $1,000 to purchase, and once you let us know that you want a treadmill, we can ship it in a period of 1 to 2 weeks.
Great, thanks, JDev. And Mark, you're up again.
All right. So the way the training kind of works is once you have your device delivered to you, we send it with an email that has a whole bunch of stuff for you to do, like put an app on your phone so that you're able to communicate with me whenever you want, as well as there's links to the assembly instructions for you to be able to put your device together and go over all the safety stuff that we have put into the assembly instructions. So it's to put the device together, and in doing so, you're going to end up learning a lot about it, just kind of how it all functions. But what ends up happening is once you've got it put together, in that email, there's a booking link that you can use to book a 3-hour training with me. Or actually, no, sorry, we booked that now for you. And if you need to change the date, you can go ahead and do that using the link in the email. But we'll go ahead and pick that time for you. We take, it's a 3-hour booking link, but usually what ends up happening is we only use about 2 hours. Sometimes for whatever reason, something happens. So I like to leave a little bit of space in there, but typically it'll take about 2 hours. There's a PowerPoint presentation that we walk you through for the first hour-ish. And then for the second hour, what we do is we get your child and we get them into the device. But through the first hour, that PowerPoint presentation, we talk about all the safety features. I'm going to show you the Riften gait trainer and how all the little buttons function on it, how all the adjustability can happen on your Trexo, so everybody's fully confident on how everything works. And then what I'll do is I'll go through the software on the tablet and explain how everything works on that end, and make sure that you're confident with how to use the device and get the kiddo in and out. I'll show you a bunch of videos of how everything kind of happens before we do it, so that you're familiar with how it all looks. And if you've got any questions, we can kind of address everything before we go ahead and do it. And then for the last hour, what we'll do is we'll get your child and we'll put them into the device and make sure that all the the devices fit in the way that we need it to be, and to be supporting them in all the areas that they may need or not, depending on how strong your child is or isn't. And then after it's set up optimally for them, what we'll do is assess the range that they're capable of on each one of their legs, save that into the device, and then kind of pick a walking pattern from within that, and get your child on the ground and practicing for the first time to see how things go. And basically, what we do at the end of the training, after you've physically put your child in and out, you've kind of felt comfortable doing it, and it's been a nice, successful day. What we're going to do is book a time to meet in a week from then, because everybody has 1,000 questions after using this thing for the first week. We're going to give you recommendations on usage, how much we think that you should use with your child for that first week. And then we'll meet up with you the week afterwards. And we want to kind of make sure that there's no irritation spots on your child's legs. Everything is comfortable and still fitting the way that we want it to be, and is going to be successful going forward. And it's also a time where you get to kind of throw all of the questions that you've collected over the first week of use at me, and we can kind of discuss them all, and I can clear all the air, and then and book another one for at the 1 month period. But that's when we start to get into the regular check-in routine that you'll have with me going forward after the training, where we do size adjustments and do all these other things to your device to make it more difficult or complicated, or easier, depending on how your child needs to be supported, because we can tweak it one way or the other. All of that is, as you can see with this picture of the tablet here, all of that is effectively done on the tablet. I'll teach you guys how to take a look at the previous activity history that the kiddos have done, as well as change any settings if you like to, and follow along with how your child's doing currently in sessions. There's also ways that you can take this thing and change it from a walker into a standing frame that we'll discuss in the training, as well as other cool features like walking backwards that are all available on the tablet.
And the other thing I'll just mention real quickly is when we create new modes or new features or things like that, the updates are pushed out through the tablet. So it is easy for you guys to stay current on the most recent features. So we kind of touched on this already, Mark. Is there anything else you wanted to say about any of these items?
So the maintenance, there's not a bunch of maintenance that has to happen on the device. It's fairly robust. Goal setting and check-ins and ongoing support all kind of happens with your customer success manager. And for the first 3 months, we set those up at the 1 week period, the 1 month period. And then once we get to the 3 month period, what ends up happening is our computer system sends an automatic text message to your phone every 3 months with a reminder to book a time with me, so that we can make sure that the device is physically sized for your child appropriately. We want to make sure that everything's optimally set up so that it's nice and comfortable for them, because what ends up happening when things get uncomfortable is the kiddo doesn't want to go in it, and then we end up creating a situation that we didn't want to have. So regular check-ins is great for that. But it's also a time that we kind of get to explore possible options that we can do with the child, like possibly taking the seat out, or having the child flip around to face the open side, or there's a whole bunch of stuff that we can do as the child progresses through with the device that we address during those check-in periods.
Great, thank you. So we're going to open it up for questions now, and I'm also going to put the poll on the screen. And just wanted to say real quick, let me advance. You can contact us at hello@Truxo Robotics, or we have a toll-free number. It's on our website, and it will also be going out on the resource sheet. And also just wanted to thank you for spending your time with us today. And now I'm just gonna stop sharing so you can see the people that are answering, and let me pop up the questions. Okay, so one person has asked, what is Billy Footwear?
Billy Shoes are, it's a company out of the States that have designed shoes for people who have orthotic footwear, the AFO plastic boots that a lot of our kids use to help with ankle support. Basically what they are is regular shoes that have a zipper that goes down the side to make it easy to get on and off over AFOs. If you're considering getting a pair for your kiddo, just take into consideration that on the inside of just buy them as they would be regular shoes, but just know that on the inside, there's typically 2 pairs of insoles in them because they're designed to be extra cushy on the inside. But what you can do is peel one of those layers out to get the AFO, and what ends up happening is you can get a smaller size shoe, which ends up working better for us in the long run, because we want to have a shoe that really fits the size of the child's foot and not one that's super long on it, because what'll end up happening is we're getting toe drag, which is what ends up happening when most people try and get Billy shoes to fit over the AFOs, because they're naturally huge on the child's foot.
Great.
And I will add that they do have a wide version for AFOs as well. So if you do go on their website to order, note that you have the option to choose the wide version to fit AFOs.
Great, thank you. I just put the poll up. Okay, next question. My son has AFOs and Billies, but he externally rotates a lot. He has a wider stance when walking with his Nimbo reverse walker. His hips are stable, clear with x-rays, but would this be something added features could help with to get a better heel strike if it is a problem?
So we currently have our shoes are 10 degrees externally rotated. We can create a pair up to 20, but I was talking with the design guys recently, and we're in the middle of creating a shoe that's going to be adjustable up to possibly even 30 degrees externally rotated. But usually what ends up happening once we go past 30 degrees of external rotation is the toes are sticking out so far that they're going to get tripped up on the bottom half of the Riften frame when walking. So we got to keep the toes within the Riften frame. So under 25 degrees of external rotation is we'll try to keep to, just to avoid a tripping hazard. But know that we can probably accommodate up to 20, no problem.
Great, thank you. And next question. While we are working on filling out grant applications, is there a specific contact person at Trexo we can put as a reason for needing the funding?
I would say it depends. Like if you're talking to somebody already, whether it's myself or Rachel, you could put one of us down. If you haven't talked to anybody yet, I would encourage you to talk to one of us so we can at least answer any questions you have, but it's generally going to be probably myself or Rachel. If they're needing to talk to somebody from like our finance department, that would really go back to Alejandro and Jadev, who are our account coordinators. So it depends what specifically they're needing.
Okay.
I just sent that, whoever asked the question, I sent you an answer privately as well.
Great, thank you. Okay, next question. Is there a rep in the UK that can support? Is there anyone in the UK with this machine?
So reps again would go back to myself and Rachel. Our headquarters is in Toronto. Rachel's based in Canada, in Toronto area, and I'm in the US, but we cover basically the whole world. So if you are in the UK, you'll talk to Rachel or myself. We do have lots of families actually in the UK who have the Trexo. So the option for international families, which we didn't technically discuss, you do have to purchase the Trexo in full. So if it's going outside of Canada or the US, it does have to be purchased in full. We can't ship it directly to you either. So you have a couple options. You would have to come to Canada or the US to pick it up. I recommend Canada if you're going to come travel to get it. Or you can we could ship it to somebody you know in Canada or the US and they could ship it to you. Or we could also look at the option of hiring a courier service to pick it up and send it to you. So these are all logistics that we can discuss, but just know that we still support you fully the same. It's just like anyone in the US or Canada. We aren't in person with anyone. Everything is done remotely via video chat, support, check-ins, all of that. It's the exact same service you get, except you're in the UK and you're not in the US or Canada. So the main difference is just that paying in full versus the rent to own option.
Great, thanks. Alejandro, I just noticed that you joined. Guys, Alejandro is on the account coordination team with JDev. So we're glad to have you here. I just want to let everyone know really quick that I have put the reservation link in the chat. If there's anybody who happens to be ready to put the reservation down, you can access it through that link. Next question, Ali, this will be for you. It's pricing. Is there an ongoing monthly fee after leasing / purchasing the device?
So there isn't an ongoing monthly fee. You do have the option if you wanted to do like an extended like complete care package, just really kind of covering the device, which I can let Jade or Alejandro touch on that a bit, but just outside of that, no, there's like once past that 36 months you own it, that's it. If the only other fees that you could incur is if your child outgrew their Trexo, which we didn't really discuss either. Instead of purchasing devices in full, when your child outgrows the device, which is common with all equipment in this space, you don't have to do that. You basically pay an upgrade fee for the next size Trexo. So for example, if your child starts with a small, they outgrow it, they need to go into a medium, the upgrade fee is $2,500. If they go from a medium to a large, it's $7,500. And if they go from a large to an extra large, it's $2,500. The larger fee from medium to large is because at that point your child is upgrading to extra large motors because they're bigger and stronger. They need those more powerful motors. So just know that you would get into that next size Trexo versus paying $40,000 for a new device. You'd pay that appropriate upgrade fee, and then you would just need to get whatever size Riften you need for the next size Trexo. But beyond that, there are no other fees. So Jada, Alejandro, if you want to kind of touch on what that complete care continuous warranty option would look like, feel free.
Yeah, sure. So right after you complete the 3 years of the lease, or you paid for the device in full in the beginning, after 3 years of warranty, which is included with the device itself, you will have the option to have an extended warranty included in a complete care plan. That also includes access to all of the software updates and the new features that we release. And this is completely optional. You would have all the information at hand before the end of the 3 years. Probably 6 months before that is usually when you will receive that communication, and it will detail all the information on what is included, how much is the monthly fees for that plan. But yeah, after the 3 years, your device will still work as before. There are just some limitations in terms of new software updates, but mostly optional as well. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Next question. And just to let you guys know, we have about 7 minutes left. Because the Truxo team is all booked with customers and potential customers, we will have to end it on time, but I've got all your questions recorded here. So if we don't get to answer it live, we will send you an individual email with the response to your question. So don't worry, we will get that taken care of. Okay, so now another question is, can we please set up a call on a one-to-one basis with someone to talk us through a few things? So on our website is our toll-free number. Rachel, can you pull that up and pop it in the chat? And the email is hello@trexorobotics.com. And you can either call or email, and you will be able to schedule some time to chat one-on-one. Okay, next question. Do you ship to Kuwait, Middle East? And how about maintenance? Can you send me the instructions and I will fix it in my country? My son has giant trainer and AFOs. How will that help him?
So I can take that one as well. In our case, we do not ship to Kuwait, well, anywhere outside Canada and the US. Alison mentioned the options we had for shipping. Usually if families travel here, it's even cheaper to travel to Canada, pick up the device, and then take it back than having another company do the shipping for you. But yeah, both options are always available. Also, we can ship to the US and it can be picked from the US by a family member or someone like that. And Sorry, Jen, what was the second part of the question?
My son has a giant trainer and AFOs. How will that help him?
Okay, I'll let Mark answer that one.
Maybe that's supposed to be gait trainer.
Yeah, I would imagine
Oh,
it's
could
supposed.
be, yes.
So if they have the gait trainer and the AFOs, I would need photographs of your great gait trainer to make sure that it has all the required specifications that I would need to make the Trexo work. Which as long as you have a Riften pacer that is dynamic. So on the front end of your right above the sticker where it says Riften, there should be 2 white buttons. One would allow the frame to bounce, the top half of the frame to bounce up and down, and the other one allows the top half to kind of sway side to side. Once I've established that you have those items and it's the appropriate size, then we could use that one as well.
Great, thank you. Next question. Our girl has GNA01. Do you support anyone else that has this condition?
It's a great question. I'd have to look it up.
Okay, we will get back to you. Like I said, we've captured these questions and we do have your email address, so we will get back to you on that one. And then our girl has a DBS device fitted. Is this a problem?
DBS device. Let me.
Is that deep brain stimulation?
Oh, if that
Maybe.
yeah, we have a few children that
Implant?
have the VNS nerve deep brain stimulation device to help with seizure control. It hasn't posed an issue for them. I don't see why it would. There's no statical electrical issues if that's the concern.
Okay, thank you. And could you please let the mother from Kuwait to contact me as I'm going to buy it for my clinic? Yes, thank you. We will definitely make that connection. That is great. So we did good. We have 3 minutes left. Feel free to pop more questions in if you have them. If not, I was actually emailed some questions, and so I'm just going to try to get 1 or 2 of these in. And so this question is from a mom. How do I know what to expect in terms of results when my child starts using the Trexo and say after 6 months, 12 months? Is there a normal standard or something that we are working towards?
I'll take that one, if that's okay. So I'll start by saying that every kid's a snowflake and every kid is going to progress at whatever rate they kind of want to do that. But at the same time, what I can tell you is what I typically see. So when kids first started getting using the Trexo, what ends up happening, because there's a lot of motion that sometimes they're not used to having, what it does is helps bowel function because organs start moving. I can tell you that what we typically see in the kids in the first 3 to 6 months is a lot of postural strength improving and head control improving and core strength improving. Every kind of kid is going to present that slightly differently in their own certain way. Like my son, for instance, was able to go from a diet where he was only able to eat purees because he had poor neck strength, to a child who was able to eat solid foods. It kind of depends on your child, but what we typically see is a lot of core strength improvements in the first 6 months, and it kind of goes from there.
Great.
If I can just add on to that, I think going in, like I didn't have any expectations with my son other than what the bowel function and everything like Mark had suggested, and everything else extra was just super exciting added on to it if that does happen. But Mark supported our family throughout the whole thing with everything that was happening. It's just exciting and magical as you see the little things happening each time.
Yeah, it's really, you're looking for different things than obviously most families are, but you'll notice differences. Every
Yeah.
family that uses this device, they'll start to pick up on strength differences in their children, and they start to do things that they weren't able to do previously.
I don't know if we also mentioned this or not, but I remember, Mark, when you and I videoed like a year or so ago, and you telling me that there is the standing mode option. And I don't know if you remember me like wanting to do a backflip because we got to get rid of our stander and kind of like have some space in our house, because as everybody knows, your house slowly turns into an equipment holder. So I just remember that was so exciting for me at the time, that it has many purposes. So sometimes when my son just wants to stand, we put it in the standing mode, and that was super exciting as well. I just thought I'd add that in there.
Great. Okay, so we have to call it quits for today, but thank you everybody who joined and asked questions, and thank you to my colleagues at Trexo. You guys are awesome as always. I'll be sending out the recording and the resource sheet, and we'll be doing at least one webinar a month, hopefully more. The goal would be to do one general one a month, and then others where we dive into the whole webinar just on specific topics. So stay tuned for more info on that. Thank you all, and everybody enjoy the rest of your day.